With the presentation of Guyana's 2014 national budget, the Ministry of Natural Resources and the Environment is looking to further expand on the achievements seen in the sector last year. The ministry, through its agencies, will be focusing on implementing measures that will further accelerate the growth and development of the sector, while at the same time introduce new programs to tackle issues such as littering through the $1 billion Clean Up My Country initiative. This week on Dorado Shines, we will hear from those responsible for the development and implementation of policy in the sector and learn more about the targets for this year.
Guyana is making more lands and resources available for mineral production and investments in the natural resources sector. These initiatives are being pursued in keeping with the country's commitment to protect the environment.
Minister of Finance Dr. Ashni Singh pointed out during his presentation of the national budget that despite challenges, the sector performed favorably in 2013.
The mining and quarrying industry recorded 8% growth over 2012. The gold industry in particular achieved total declarations of 481,087 ounces, 9.7% above the previous year, and a historic performance. Of particular note, Mr. Speaker, last year's level of declarations represents the highest level of production in the history of the industry, exceeding production levels even when Omai gold mines were at their peak. The fortunes of bauxite were somewhat more tempered, with the industry registering an 11% decline in value-added production. Diamond declarations increased by 56.9%, while stone production grew by 47.8%, the latter reflecting a strong boom in construction activity across the country.
Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Natural Resources and the Environment, Jocelyn McKenzie, pointed out that the primary objective is to further build on the achievements seen in previous years.
Essentially, the national budget for 2014 as relates to the Ministry of Natural Resources and Environment continues along the development trajectory in terms of mainstreaming biodiversity within the environment, ensuring that we develop the natural resources to the utmost, while at the same time providing a better life for all Guyanese, as indicated the theme. This year's budget is a continuation of that of 2011, 2012, and 2013. Great emphasis is being paid on the enforcement of the litter, right? So you provide a lot of emphasis in terms of litter regulation, strengthening the EPA, improving the services of the Guyana Land Surveys Commission in terms of national land use planning, and these are the key entities.
Mineral extraction contributed significantly to the growth of the sector and the economy in 2013, and based on targets for this year, growth is expected to continue.
Mining and quarrying is expected to return moderate growth of 2.8%, with gold, the dominant contributor to this sector, targeted to produce 484,562 ounces, modest growth of 0.7%, reflecting a somewhat conservative projection, but also taking into account of recent volatility in world market prices. The bauxite industry is projected to expand by 11.5%, mainly due to expanded production levels of metal-grade bauxite.
During the past years, I think the sector held its own in Guyana's economy. They were able to contribute significantly to the GDP. However, we want to ensure that this is maintained and increased.
Newly appointed chairman of the Guyana Geology and Mines Commission, Clinton Williams, in recognizing the vital role the mining sector plays in the economy, believes that prudent measures must be put in place to reduce the impact of fluctuating commodity prices.
The sector, in my view, is crucial for our survival, and therefore will have to be given the attention that would allow it to perform within the context of its potential. And therefore, even though at the moment the focus is on gold and diamonds particularly, we would have to think beyond that, as it were, think outside of the box, and try and bring into focus those other sectors that has also significant potential, and try and bring them on board as soon as possible, so that, as you realize already, gold is being hit by all kinds of issues, so that we can deal with those at the mirror in a way that makes sense.
The gold mining sector has, for another consecutive year, played an important role in the domestic economy, and as I've already reported, delivered record-breaking production. The industry remained resilient to price shocks, with growth only minimally affected, as evidenced from the retention of jobs and the attendant multipliers in economic activity. Despite the more cautious response by the global markets to price shocks, the prospects for large-scale mining in Guyana are still very real. Demonstrated investor confidence remains unshaken where large-scale projects for gold in Guyana are concerned. The Guyana Goldfields project at Aurora is advancing aggressively for late 2014 startup, which is earlier than originally projected. And Troy Resources, or Farsalis in the Kaburi area, is on stream for late 2014 startup, if not earlier rather. The ETK Sand Springs project at Torparo is also poised for developmental works geared to production, starting up in 2015. Collectively, these injections of FDI are anticipated to increase production significantly, along with industrial and commercial linkages, which together bode well for Guyana's economy on the whole.
In 2013, a new international convention to control mercury emissions was opened for signing in Japan in response to the reality that mercury pollution is a global problem that no country can address unilaterally.
Government continues to forge ahead with our innovative, climate-resilient and low-carbon approach to economic development, backed by our unwavering commitment to good forest governance and stewardship. Over the past year, our government continued to work tirelessly at the multilateral level to establish a reducing emissions from deforestation and forest degradation framework that sets the stage for future payments for forest conservation and sustainable forest management. To date, Guyana has earned 3 consecutive payments from Norway, totaling $115 million within the framework of our LCDS. In the last quarter of 2013, the annual third-party audit of Guyana's performance under this partnership was completed, clearing the way for a 4th payment. A total of 4 GRIF projects with a combined approximate value of $30 million were in their implementation phases. Under the $7 million institutional strengthening project, significant progress was made towards the development of Guyana's first national-scale monitoring, reporting, and verification system. Under the $6 million allocation to the Amerindian Development Fund, milestone disbursements were made to all 26 of the initial beneficiary communities for the implementation of their development plans in promoting sustainable village economies. Under the $5 million micro and small enterprise development project, applications for loans with reduced interest rates have already started to be processed for entrepreneurs with business ventures in low-carbon sectors. Furthermore, Mr. Speaker, in the last quarter of 2013, the $10.7 million Amerindian land titling project was approved and commenced implementation. Mr. Speaker, in 2014, sums totaling $90.6 million have been allocated for continued implementation of the GRIF projects previously identified, along with new projects in the priority areas of adaptation, high potential low carbon sectors, hinterland development, and low carbon infrastructure. Specific new interventions are expected to include ecotourism development, aquaculture development, and rehabilitation works on the Cunha Canal. This second wave of projects will commence with a communication and outreach program for the LCDS in the second quarter of this year, along with the development of a national climate resilience strategy and action plan. In addition, Mr. Speaker, a sum of $80 million is once again allocated to meet Guyana's equity contribution to the Amila Falls hydropower project.
Meeting with international obligations as a country while at the same time maximizing mineral recovery is critical if the sector is to continue recording growth.
We have to stick with what we signed on to in terms of international regulation that relates to utilization of mercury in the process, and more importantly, to ensure that we're recovering as much as we can in the recovery process in the field, on the mines. And we have had a lot of engagements with all the stakeholders within recent times, the last 2 months or so, as to what the strategies ought to be and how each player will contribute towards ensuring that this matter is addressed in a way that makes for improved recoveries and reduction work.
It is perceived that as much as 60% of the gold that is mined is lost in the recovery process. And if we can up that by another 15-20%, I think we can safely say it would improve the declaration. And we also would try to increase our presence in the interior so that our systems and our processes and all the necessary requirements are followed, from mining to the marketing of the product.
The Commissioner said the agency is looking to recruit more personnel to address the challenge of limited human resources, which should positively impact on its ability to monitor mining operations throughout the country.
What we are also doing at the GGMC is to recruit additional field personnel with 15,000 small claims, about 7,000 medium, and over 200 prospecting licenses and about 8,000 dredges. For 150 persons to monitor that is a humongous challenge. So we have to be recruiting and training, etc., all the time, where we do have some staff turnover and some other issues that we need to deal with. So we're in the process of training, etc., recruiting, to ensure that we fulfill our mandate to the sector.
The Guyana Mining School and Training Center Incorporated was established to improve education in technical training for the mining sector. A grant agreement is in place between World Wildlife Fund Incorporated and GGMC to develop a curriculum for the mining school.
Also of importance is ensuring that miners acquire specialized training and guidance that would allow for more efficiency and effectiveness in the way mining operations are conducted.
The training school, we believe, will help a lot in terms of ensuring that we can have increased performance by those people who wish to go into that particular sector. Of course, we've signed on to a number of international regulations as it relates to the low carbon development strategy, one of which is environmental management and obviously utilization of our resources, and making sure once we do that, then the minority areas are properly reclaimed and therefore reduce the impact of climate change. And so a lot of fund, I think $500 million, I think, have been set in the budget this year to deal with that aspect of it.
The other thing is to ensure that mining is carried out in the correct manner. The miners invest in equipment, they go to a piece of land and they start working without the knowledge if there is sufficient mineralization for any economic benefit to be derived from their investment. And this is something we would work diligently with the mining school, with our geological services unit, and other support units to ensure that the miner understands how it is that mining should be done.
Attention is also being given to issues which are negatively impacting the sector, such as security, which has been a major concern for GGMC and all stakeholders.
The major challenge out there is security. It's not only security for the miners, but security for the officers who are out there collecting revenue, executing seizures for persons working illegally, etc. And he's very much alone. And the same people that he or she's supposed to monitor, the same person that they depend on to protect him. And this is one of the challenges that we face. Another challenge is that these operations are geographically scattered. All the operations, for example, in Madja is not in one small area. The Madja mining district covers as far as Ichirak, which is near the Kaichur Falls. Monkey Mountain covers the part of Kurbrang, Konaruk, and this is geographically scattered. And although we have substations out there, the whole perspective of the city is that they can't reach all of them all the time. You can go here, you can see that there's some breach of the regulations. They make a decision, but then they can't stay there. They move to another one. And as soon as they move, the people break the law, breach the ceasefire accord, and continue working.
My understanding is that in this year's budget, the community policing groups have been allocated a substantial amount of money. We are hoping that with those funding, we can encourage GDME and the miners themselves to be involved in securing their assets, securing their property to the extent that we're all winners. Once we go there and we find something that is illegal, we will try and deal with it. But once we leave, they'll probably go back and do the same thing. So since the miners are the people who are going to be out there all the time, they have to be part and parcel of what it is we're attempting to do. So I would say that that's new in a sense, if it were to call it new, sort of system or practice that we hope will give us the results we're looking for.
Greater emphasis will be placed this year on further implementing the ministry's strategic plan.
This year's national estimate we see as allowing us to advance the strategic plan of the ministry, that is providing greater level of policy guidance to the agencies and coordinating the initiatives as it relates to environmental management. Under the wildlife regulation, the CITES, we see also the establishment of some protected areas on the Protected Areas Commission, the reorganization of the National Parks Commission to bring it under the Protected Areas Commission, making it one entity in charge of both urban and the rural areas. We do see the creation of some new departments within the EPA, such as the Water Quality Unit, completion of enforcement regulations, working along with the Ministry of Government and Regional Development in terms of the Solid Waste Management Bill. And all these are critical parts to the overarching policy that is environmental sustainability.
As business operators, we need to be responsible.
Stop littering. Do the right thing.
I always encourage the passengers not to throw garbage out of the window.
Stop littering. Do the right thing.
A record $1 billion has been allocated in the 2014 national budget for an anti-litter program that will result in the capital city, all other towns, and rural villages implementing a Clean Up My Community action plan.
There can be no doubt in the minds of any observer that the city of Georgetown and indeed many other places in Guyana have a serious sanitation problem. Piles of garbage and litter abound. The national public health hazard that this presents, especially in the face of emerging disease, can no longer be ignored. Notwithstanding the statutory responsibility of the local government bodies for maintaining the environment in our communities and neighborhoods, it is visibly evident that they have failed in the discharge. of this basic duty. Government can no longer stand by in hope, waiting in vain for comatose local government bodies to address this problem. In an attempt to address this issue, government will spearhead an effort that will result in the capital city, all other towns and rural villages implementing a Clean Up My Community action plan that will address the collection and removal of garbage, as well as the reporting of residents who irresponsibly dispose of their garbage.
We must do everything we can to keep our surroundings clean.
Stop littering. Do the right thing.
Having passed the new regulation, that really and truly takes the fine up. We're working now on having the PR part being completed, where we have little wardens being hired, sensitization programs being done, persons being made aware of what are some of the implications of their actions before we move on. In this case, we're working with the Ministry of Local Government, the City Council, and the NDCs in terms of advancing this effort.
Efforts to ensure the ministry and its agencies operate in an atmosphere of transparency and accountability will intensify in 2014.
The Ministry of Natural Environment is responsible primarily for the nation's wealth, and primarily so land. And the last time I checked, land is one of the few things we don't make anymore. The GGMC is ISO certified, and they're working on improving that departments being accredited, and they've got that well laid out. In the case of the mineral sector, the government has worked with the stakeholders, and we're now about to do a scoping study for the Extractive Industry Transparency Initiative, which basically speaks to how monies are generated and reinvested into the sector. In the case of forestry, it's the log tracking system that allows us to know exactly what is happening, the voluntary partnership agreement with the EU, and these are all agreements that the government of Ghana would have signed on to because we want to ensure this is being done.
Much work is also being done at the level of the various agencies in the sector to implement measures that would further enhance transparency.
I know the GGMCs make significant efforts in this. We've seen a number of the backlogs being cleared, the same with forestry, the same with lands and surveys. Lands and surveys, as through the National Land Use Project, have established what's called a lease approval management system, which is now integrated into all the regional offices. So you know in a much quicker time if the land is available or not, which sometimes remove this idea or perception that probably something has gone wrong.
Extensive collaboration with stakeholders has seen support and involvement from communities and other interest groups grow over the years, which has served to positively impact the overall operation and performance of the sector.
We receive overwhelming support from all the various stakeholders in terms of advancing the efforts. I think everyone recognizes the importance of effective management within the natural resources sector. What's most important is that of the stakeholder collaboration, and the GGMC has been working assiduously in terms of reaching out to some of those far-flung communities that they don't reach as frequently as they would like to because of logistical issues and so. And we've seen them coming very much on stream. We've seen them working very much with Armenian communities, and the amount of complaints that were received have significantly reduced. We've seen the same in the forestry and the GLSE system. With the EPA, we see the amount of, in some cases, they've been increased in the amount of concerns. And I think this is as a result of greater public awareness, persons being made aware as to what are their rights and duties and so.
We have an open door policy at the Commission. If there's any challenges, technical or otherwise, the miners are faced with, they're free to come and visit the GGMC and get any support. I would also like to encourage them to be au fait with the Mining Act and regulations to avoid any breaches and any unpleasant situation they may encounter during their operation. So, and those that understand the law, they should try to abide by these regulations as best as possible.
Welcome to Guyana, the gateway to South America. A pristine haven of abundant natural resources. We are a nation born in sacrifice and enriched by our togetherness. When we play, we celebrate every effort. When we celebrate, we salute more than success. We exude our right to move forward.
Check us out on the internet for this and every episode of Dorado Shines. Just go to YouTube, search for Dorado Shines and start watching. Or like us on Facebook and receive instant updates.
You've been watching Dorado Shines. Join us again next week for another program. Until then, do remember that we all have a role to play in protecting the environment.